What they're really saying is, send me a whole bunch of leads. And that's about the extent. Bad, low value type of relationship right there.
We built a list of like what we thought would work and make sense. I don't know that I was really intentional about like, is this a person that makes sense as a partner and why?
I was paying an absurd amount of money every single day, and I needed to find a way to get myself out of debt as quick as possible. All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. With me is my good buddy, Zach Burkes, co-founder of Predictable Profits, and also heading up our partnership department right now. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit more about partnerships. It's one of the greatest sources of momentum that you can have in your business. Thing is it takes almost just as much effort to sell one partner as it does to sell one-on-one. And partnerships is an extraordinary strategy. It doesn't matter if you currently sell B2C or you sell B2B. Every opportunity you have, or I should say in any business, in any industry, you have the opportunity to bring in partners. You bring one partner and they can turn around and they can bring you a consistent, predictable flow of leads and deals day after day, week after week, month after month. It's a tremendous source of momentum. And as Richard Branson likes to say, if you know how to leverage momentum, you leave your competitors trailing in your wake. Extraordinary. So Zach, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I wrote down a bunch of different things to talk about. So I'm prepared and excited to dive in.
It's funny. Most of my guests, when they come on, they say, should I prepare for the show? And I tell everybody, no need to prepare because we're going to go ahead. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. And you prepared. So this is going to be a different one for me, which is great. So why don't we actually start? You said you wrote down a bunch of things. Obviously, you find it to be key components really important. What's the first thing on your list?
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, I wrote some things down, just kind of thinking about partnerships, where they're headed, why they're useful, why they're beneficial to everyone. And then naturally use some AI to kind of bounce a few ideas off of using our agents, the Charlie bot, subtle plug there. And one of the first ones was transformational partnerships and moving beyond transactions. And so why that matters is that I think there's this thing when you hear someone mention partnerships, historically, like, what does that mean to you? When you think of like a bad partnership, Charlie, like what typically plays out? Like what happens most often when it's like not a great partnership?
It's like we get hit up probably 3 or 4 times every single day when it's like, hey, you want to partner? And what they're really saying is, send me a whole bunch of leads. And that's about the extent. And I would say that's a very bad, low value type of relationship right there.
Right. So you start with, just send me some leads. And then you never hear from each other because oftentimes no one sends each other any leads. And so it's just very transactional, right? It's not. And I think where we're headed and where we should focus as business owners, as founders, CEOs, is thinking about how do I build deep, value-driven relationships, like those that really matter and move the needle for everyone involved, not just yourself, not just your partner, but also the end user, the customer, the client, whatever that looks like. And so that's kind of the first one, because I think we still see that a lot. And partnerships are this great thing that can drive a lot of momentum. As you just mentioned with Richard Branson, can be very effective in kind of shortcutting rapport and trust, which we know is really important in 2025, all these things. But I think it really comes down to how you structure it and how you approach it, because that's just as important as like whatever sort of partner that you could do.
See, a transaction is just, you send me a client and then really doesn't matter what the outcome is other than you're paying me a commission and then everything's, it is what it is. That's the most common. You see that almost everywhere, especially in the affiliate marketing world.
Right.
But what you're referring to is making a transformation. And the way that we structured here at Predictable Profits is we look at a partner and we go, what are some of the most meaningful KPIs right now that currently exist for our partner? And in some cases, we have partners where we work with them and it has a meaningful impact in their retention. The companies that work with us, they tend to grow, they do better. And as a result, they stay with their existing client longer. And that could be because we're solving different problems, whether it is, the partner is generating plenty of deal flow, but they don't focus in on the conversion. and the business owner itself doesn't really know how to maximize that conversion. So we step in and we can show them how to maximize the conversion. Therefore, the leads that the partner's bringing in become more valuable, and they stay more with the partner, and then they continue investing and reinvesting in the partner's business. Right.
Yeah. You said something there that I think that you've challenged me a lot on, that I think is really important. If you're thinking about, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, so I've heard people talk about partnerships. How do I even go about doing this? I think one thing you have to really think about that you mentioned, I think because you're just wired that way to think about it, but I don't know that's just a common, is what problem do you solve for that? Right.
Yeah.
I think so often people get into this mindset of like, what's in it for me and how can I get something out of this?
Yeah.
But if you approach it like, how do I solve this problem for Zach? How do I solve this problem for Charlie? I'm more inclined to be like, wow, this person has thought about how they can help us and me. I want to work with this person. How do we figure this out? Or this company, this business? I think if you can start there and you really like solve that problem. I'm trying to think of an example. Like an example might be if I had a SaaS tool and I knew that when people use our platform and they're really engaged, they get great results, but for some reason they're just falling off, they're not using it. If you could help solve that problem of say retention, attrition, customer acquisition, payback, like some problem that like you see it often with like SaaS, then that's like, oh, that makes sense. I want to work with this person because they're solving a problem.
Yeah.
Do you have any other examples or anything like when you think about like solving a problem for someone, what does that mean to you? Because I think I've gotten kind of tripped up on that in the past, and I think you've challenged me on that, but what makes you think like I need to solve this problem?
So for predictable profits, I look at what is causing our existing client that is resulting in their clients churning or not spending enough money with them or giving them some sort of a headache. Like you say, a pay-per-click agency is an example. They can turn around, they can be masterful at driving leads from their paid ads back to the client. But if they don't know how to convert those leads into paying customers, that becomes an issue. Or we've worked with a media company and they were great at getting people media coverage, but then the company owners they didn't really know what to do with that media coverage and how to add that into sales enablement and use that into their sales funnel. And the result was they didn't see the true value or harness step into true potential of the media coverage. But the strategy was ultimately born completely by accident. It was back in 2001. I had a real estate development business and I knew nothing. It was like weird. I just graduated from business school, but I felt like at the same time, I knew nothing about running a business. Like it was weird. Right? And it actually worked to my advantage because at the time I was in over $1 million in debt. I'm paying double-digit interest rates. So as Tony Robbins likes to say, you make decisions for two reasons, either inspiration or desperation. And for me, there was a lot of desperation there. I mean, I was paying an absurd amount of money every single day, and I needed to find a way to get myself out of debt as quick as possible. And so I'm standing there and I'm looking at these houses that I'm building. Now, most people, when they build a house, they build a house and they're like, well, that's it. And they sell it and they walk out the door, they hand the keys over. And I'm like, man, but these people, they need so much. Like when you are building a house, the best time to wire a house for a home theater would be before the drywall goes up, because it's going to be a lot easier, a lot less expensive for the owner, and for the installer, it's a lot easier. And so I looked at every different angle, from home alarms to home theaters to driveway seal coating, like anything you can imagine. And I turned around and I went to every vendor I could. And I was like, an example was Tweeter. Way back in the day, they existed. So they don't exist right now. But I went to Tweeter, this big company, and I said, look, I'm building these real estate developments and people do want these home theaters, but they have a challenge. They haven't experienced it. They don't know what it feels like when they walk into a home and there's a home theater. It costs them more money once the plaster and the drywall is up. It's more of an inconvenience for you. I already have the buyers. What if we form some sort of deal where I could bring the buyers to you, you would give them a preferred discount that they wouldn't get off the street, because now they're able to install everything a heck of a lot cheaper. And then because we're doing all this, then you can give me a commission and everybody ends up winning the whole deal. And they actually have never done anything like this before. a big multi-billion-dollar company, never did anything like this before. They had to go all the way up to their leadership. The leadership said, go ahead and do it. And the result of that and so many other partnerships that we built, I was bringing in checks every single week to the point where I just thought that what I did was normal. And then I had the principal of a large Boston accounting firm came to my house completely unannounced. He knocked on my front door. I opened it. He says, can I come in? And he walked right through our patio, sat himself down, or our foyer, sat himself down at our breakfast table, and then just stared at me like I did something wrong. And I'm going, now I'm panicking. I'm like, what's happening? And he goes, what are you guys doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he said, I need to make sure you're not doing anything illegal. And I'm like, huh? Now I'm really panicking. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, you've paid fair market value for the properties. You're selling it for fair market value. But you have one of the highest margins in the entire industry, and I can't figure it out. And so we went through it, and I shared with him this idea of the triple win partnership. And he says, this is the first time I've ever heard that. And he specialized in the real estate development industry. So I realized we were onto something that was unique and different. And then every single business we built thereafter, we always started asking ourselves, like, what are all the different ways in which we could benefit not only our buyers, but even the vendor? And then triple wins ended up becoming really a big thing. You know, PayPal launched because of a triple win. They did a massive one. Dropbox triple win, meaning, you know, I refer you, you get 256 megabytes, I get 256 megabytes. And these big companies that have grown massively have found ways to leverage triple win. But this is where most small business owners miss out, is they don't start asking questions like, beyond just a referral partner, how can every person involved end up winning?
I wrote two of the things down, and they kind of tie into what you're saying here. And the one was that, like, a modern example of this that is really smart. And I really like the guys at High Level. They're awesome guys. They have a great product. One of their, like, key, and I'm not saying anything that's not, you know, public. I think everyone knows. They've really leaned into a number of things. One of them is working with agencies, and that is you can kind of templatize or white label. I think that's the right term for them. I'm not entirely sure their services. I just don't want to speak out of turn, and you can then sell these packages, right? And so I'm already doing this as a marketing agency. I'm already creating these things. Now I can package that for my end user. High Level is benefiting from it. I'm benefiting from it as an agency owner, and my client is benefiting. So it's a triple win. And it's something that's like, it's really easy. And I think when you just mentioned with the home studio or theater, it's also one of those things that's like, it's an easy, quick win. Obviously you want to have like the relationship and go above and beyond. It's not transactional, but you were thoughtful, and it was like, yeah, why wouldn't we do this? This is pretty clear that everyone benefits. And so I really like that. I think there's a bunch of examples out there right now that are like, duh, but like we just don't do it. And it's a lot for small business owners available.
You can also think about, like, what is the consumer going to be buying before they do business with you? Right. So then you can start forming a relationship with those people. So you see this a lot where in project-based businesses, they finish up a project and then they really have nothing else to sell the business owner, typically, or the customer, the buyer. But then, you know, those people are going to continue buying something to get a greater result for whatever they originally sought. And so that's where you can bolt on in the back end. And the result of that is, and now the company that is doing the referring, now you're able to increase the lifetime customer value because they have nothing to sell anyway. They've already sold what they could sell, but now you're giving them the opportunity to increase their lifetime customer value. Or let's say this was a conversation I had with somebody earlier today, and he has a massive list of leads, but what he realized is that after 90 days, the probability of those people that are actually going to buy after those 90 days go way down, at least from what he found. So I said, well, we have an option for how I can help you monetize those leads. So you already paid for them through paid advertising. And so you've got those leads that you paid for. But statistically speaking, you're telling me that they're not going to go ahead. They're not going to do any business with you right now. What if I could show you how to monetize those leads? Is that a conversation worth having? And he said, well, yeah, of course. I'm I'm all ears. And I'm like, what if you introduce them to then me? And then we could go ahead and we could run a workshop, and we can, number one, introduce the value of what we do and how that ties into growing a business. So then it opens their eyes to different solutions, the ways that you guys help. And then also, should they become clients of ours, and you'll get a commission off of whatever it is that they end up buying. And the reality is, because our clients tend to stay with us forever, the result is that you'll end up making more money through the commissions of what we will pay you than what that customer is worth. And your probabilities go up that they're also going to become a customer as well. And the best thing is when they become a client of ours and they're getting paid a commission, they don't have to answer customer support. They don't have to service. They have zero delivery. They don't have to do anything except just receive a commission.
Right.
But you have to be really careful too when it comes to those partners. And, there's a reason why we don't partner with anybody. In fact, if I'm going to guess, Zach, you probably say no to more people than you say yes to when you screen through partners. Because it's like, if we bring in the wrong partner, if we haven't properly vetted them, if we can't extend our reputation and vouch for them, that actually is going to do irreparable harm for us. Like, imagine if I ended up, probably a bad example, but let's say, Enron, right? Like, we were like, oh, go use Enron. Enron's the best and blah, blah, blah. And then they turn around and they got busted in a massive, scam and so forth. And all of a sudden it's like, well, I became clients of theirs because, predict profit said to do that. Well, that just drags us through the mud. So we have to really, really comb through, because it took us 15 years to build the reputation that we have right now. We don't want one jackass of a partner to, screw things up for us. So we're super careful. We'd rather not partner with somebody if we're unsure of them.
Right.
Partner with somebody just to try to make a few bucks.
I want to come back to this point, because I think you bring up a good point. Like, how do I vet partners, or how do I prove to potential partners that I'm not going to be one of those crappy partners that like burns? Because I think that's one, hurdle that you have to get over with people, is to prove that I am genuine, legit, and we have your best interests at heart. But I like where you're going with this. And I think there are a lot of examples to consider. The other thing I wrote down, Charlie, and I don't know if this is a good time to talk about it, maybe I should save it, is that we know that direct sales is changing. We know that people want self-serve. They don't want to talk to a salesperson until they're ready. Yep. Some cases, they don't want to talk to a salesperson at all. Yep. They want to buy a Tesla online before they even talk to a person. I mean, there's plenty of examples, and we know this is only increasing. That's where partners are going to become even more important, right? And more impactful. If you have an ecosystem of really great partners, that helps elevate you to another level beyond your competitors, because you have leads and sales coming, and they're kind of shortcutting that trust and rapport process because they've already done that hard work for you, right? So I think as you look ahead, next 5 years, I think partners will just become even more impactful and important than they already are. And I think they're really important. But you just think like where like sales is going. Yeah. So that was the other thing I wrote down, but curious, which one do you want to talk about first? Well, the one I just meant?
I mean, or you kind of opened a loop, so we'll go ahead and we'll address it. But I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time, that ultimately the role of the B2B salesperson will disappear by the year 2030. That, when people think of AI and the disruption of AI, they're thinking, well, the way that we create content or technology and the way that's produced, or even, my employees, some of them may end up becoming redundant and so forth. And they think about the disruption that way. But what nobody's talking about right now is how AI will disrupt the buyer's journey. And that's what we spoke about in our board of directors offsite. And we showed them real data, real trends, evidence to justify everything that we're talking about. That 100% of all B2B sales will happen through a rep-free sales experience by the year 2030. And this was supported by research that we pulled up by Forrester, by McKinsey, and so forth. So, and it doesn't matter if you're selling $1,000 widget or $1 million widget, as we've shown that people are looking for this rep-free sales experience. That means that by the time they decide to do business with you, they would have already decided, I want to do business with you, but they still will want to get on the phone with the person as more as a client experience representative to co-design, to talk about legal, to customize exactly what the proposal has to look like. When we say rep free, they will make a decision to work with you before speaking to a representative. So what is the implication then of partnerships, and why what we're talking about important? Well, shortly after we gave this presentation, then ChatGPT turned around and they dropped Atlas, which is an agentic type browser provided by ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And if anybody here has not used it, basically you have this new browser, kind of like what you would do with Chrome and whatnot, except when you enter in a query, rather than getting a whole bunch of websites, you get their output. So you don't actually get access to a website. Now, when you look at the data, and I would challenge everybody to look at their analytics, what they'll find is from January to now, about 60% of the website traffic has dropped down. It doesn't mean that your SEO agency sucks, by no means. What that means is that just the way that AI overviews and so forth are happening, they're prioritizing information over clicks. This is a long way of saying, and it's actually a short way if I'm really being honest, but of saying that the importance of partnerships can't be overstated enough right now, because if you already are starting to work with someone that has that affinity and that trust with your prospect, you're shortcutting the process, because rather than risking you not showing up at all through those AI-based search engines, now what's going to end up happening is they're going to say, hey, look, you need this particular vendor or support. I'm going to recommend Zach, or I'm going to recommend whomever. And so you are actually entering into a conversation that you may never have otherwise entered before. This is the type of stuff that we're leaning into really, really, really hard with the board of directors members right now and our coaching clients.
Yeah. I mean, just like pause real quick on that, Charlie. Like it's a humble brag, it's a boast, but I would say that we have great relationships with our community and our clients that are in person. These are like our, best friends, right? Like these are people that we know intimately, extremely well. If I bring you into our community, I vouch for you, immediately it's like, well, Zach thinks they're cool. They must be, right? Or Charlie says this tool works and I should use it. I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because we've worked with them for 3-4 years, and they're like, I trust what Charlie will advise me to do. Like if you're in with someone like that and they can make that sort of introduction for you, you just shortcut it all the stuff we talked about, or we talked about touch points and 300 days and all that stuff. Like you just kind of minimize it, because Charlie has done all the legwork for you for the last 4 years. Yeah. And he's putting you in front of his group because he's trusting you. Anyway, it makes a lot of sense. And
everything you're saying is so spot on. And I want people to understand the implications of what you're saying, because you're shortcutting that buying process of exploration and evaluation, trying to find who's going to be the best vendor for me. Instead, now I've got a trusted friend or a trusted partner that said, hey, we've done all the vetting for you, all of it. And these are the people that we're willing to extend our reputation and, our good word to say, give these people a shot. And then if you want to sweeten the deal even more, and you say, hey, because he came from Acme Corp, we're going to turn around and, we're going to give you this opportunity to kick the tires, check this out, feel what it's like to work with us, experience the impact of the work that we do together. Try it out for 90 days. And if for whatever reason you're not smiling ear to ear and can't look back and say this is the best experience of your time and money that you could have invested in you and your business, let us know. We'll give you all your money back.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's like, well, damn, this company referred me over to these folks, and these folks are willing to put their money where their mouth is and give me 90 days to experience everything, download all the content, try it out, everything else. And if I'm not smiling ear to ear, very little fine print or no fine print whatsoever, you give me the money back. You're making it so hard for them to say no. Why would they say no?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, but if you're going to put your neck out like that, you better damn well have a good product. If you don't have a good product, or you don't have a good service, or you don't have a good onboarding experience, or you don't have a good client experience, and people are dropping out, that's on you. Yeah. If there's one thing I'm really good at, it's rabbit holes, but there's a big purpose behind that. In today's day and age, if you can't deliver anyway, you shouldn't keep their business. We're in a world too small of reviews and everything else.
So I am curious. So we talked about kind of like the importance of partnerships, what they are, why you should do it. I think the natural progression for me is like, so let's say I'm starting out. I'm like, all right, I want to explore some partnerships. Do you have any thoughts or ideas? And as you know, I've been on this front. I'm happy to share some takeaways that I have that I think have been just like little things that have made an impact. But I'm curious.
The script for a little bit. Now I'm going to go back to you. So let's flip the script, right?
Yeah.
Because my first piece of advice is going to be fail and fail fast, right? And in the beginning, it didn't work. Like you tried, things didn't work, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. So why didn't it work? Why did things fail in the beginning?
Yeah, I think I'm going to sound a lot like our buddy Tom Trush, and maybe just because I spent a lot of time with him, I'm like now by osmosis turning into Tom. But I think the first part is we didn't we built a list of like what we thought would work and make sense. I don't know that I was really intentional about like, is this a person that makes sense as a partner and why? And like really digging into the list first. So what does that mean, right? Like if you're like, okay, Zach, explain to me what you mean by that. We had a variety of different businesses because they're like, well, they work with small businesses, they work with founders, to use Charlie's phrase. But like they have founders who are stuck in the founder's trap and we can help them escape from that. We're complementary to what they do. And I'm not going to say like the different types that didn't quite work out, but some just didn't work out, right? What we found was that those who already have this like trusted advisor relationship, they're just far more likely to view business coaching, consulting, this community as like a value add. And it's a lot easier for their clients, their customers, their users to kind of make the leap from where they are now to working with us. Does that make sense? Like
it does make sense.
It was less about like the business owner, not like, cause we would go to set up partnerships and the CEO, the founder, the leadership team would be like, yeah, we're in. We'd get everyone on board, work across different departments, and it just wouldn't work as well. And part of that, I think, was because the companies we were partnering with did not have that trusted advisor relationship. And so they weren't really giving that advice to their customers to begin with. And so how would a business coach kind of slot in? And I don't know if I'm making, the best example or explaining it well, but when we pivoted to work, like, let's focus on the companies we know that have this trusted advisor relationship, where they're actively engaged with their list, where they're constantly communicating with them on social media, where they're constantly in front of them with workshops, et cetera. When we switched to that mode and started focusing on those types of companies, not only did they get it, because they're like, yeah, we're the same way. Like it was a lot easier to kind of pitch partner. Once they got us in and they started promoting us to their members, their users, their customers, it was just a much easier kind of lift or pitch to their end users because they already had that relationship. If you have to like educate too much, which is a good point, and to bring back to the original point, which I didn't mention, is that we were also solving a clear problem, right? And so they both had the problem and they understood it. So I didn't have to explain, you have this problem. This is how we should help you. It became a lot easier, right? So to your point, the cliff notes is that if you have to educate too much, probably not going to be a great.
Or if they're not currently marketing or, to their list and have a relationship with their list, they're not going to be a good fit because they have to have a relationship. And then, the other part, and you kind of touched upon this, but in the beginning, we were looking, it almost sounded like, the focus is on let's form partnerships without actually taking the time to be like, what's the problem we're going to solve for them? Like, how do we make a meaningful impact into their KPIs? All right.
Another quick kind of like activity sort of thing that I found to be really effective is leveraging LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Right. That's an obvious one. That seems really easy, but sending emails, stuff in the mail, all of it works. But I think really leaning on LinkedIn to engage, like comment on posts, download, follow pages, engage with their community, really be present and get, the folks that you've identified at these companies to take notice and recognize you. That helps you get your emails open. That helps to get conversations. It makes a big impact. And obviously you've had Jerson on before. You talked about preheating, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when it comes to partners. And if you're not doing that, it's very hard to cut through the noise and get to these bigger companies who you think would be ideal, like dream partner, but like, how are they going to know that you exist?
Yeah. I mean, it's a relationship, whether a business relationship or personal relationship. If you rush a relationship, you're going to lose trust. When I first met my wife, if I went in for the kiss right away, she would have backed up because she'd be like, I don't know you or I don't trust you right now. She would have backed up, and then I would have been way too far. Like it would have done some damage into how long it would take before she would trust me enough, to build a more profound relationship. The same thing, if I go right into a business relationship and I'm like, hey, you want to promote my stuff right off the bat, they're going to be like, buddy, like cool down a little bit. Like, I don't even really know if I like you.
Yeah. Who are you?
Exactly. Who are you? And
yeah,
one of the things that you're really good at is, I've learned this, that the best things in life actually come through patience, delayed gratification. So it's like, you want to lose weight. If you try those fast pills and potions, it's going to take you forever and ever and ever until you finally decide, like, if I'm going to lose weight, I got to just eat clean, maybe a little calorie, drop my calories a little bit, exercise, and then I'll lose weight consistently. Same thing with relationships. Take your time, nurture that relationship little at a time. And you found the exact same thing in business growth. You chase growth hacks, like it's never going to work until you decide to grow a real business, like any example, you name it. And you discovered that also with partnerships where you're like, you know what, hold on. Let's take a little step back. Let's just get to know each other a little bit. Let me interview you. We'll put together some content, write an article, right? Then it's like, let's get you on the podcast. Let's get to know you a little bit more. This is all part of the vetting process, right? Let's have a few phone calls. Let's just kind of really make sure that we're both a good fit. And then only if we think that this is going to make sense, then we'll probably start with a little bit of a pilot program, right? Let's run a quick activation and see what the response is. And if the message resonates, and then let's go another step further and another step further. So it's like, it's a little bit of a longer process, but the relationships that are forged as a result of it are strong and consistent and built on a foundation of trust.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Maybe that was one thing that we missed early on when you asked, like, what were we missing, or where did you maybe go awry? It was maybe shortcutting and getting into these relationships, but really partnership, unless you're like the 800-pound gorilla in your HubSpot and you're dictating how things go, like very few of us are in that position. You need to build trust and rapport, and it's going to take some time. I think one way that we've done that now, and once you've done this and you build the trust and rapport, there's just more skin in the game.
Yeah.
Right. And so when things maybe don't go perfectly the first time around, they're not going to bail. They're not going to be like, oh, it wasn't great. Not that happens, but I'm just saying, like, you built these relationships. They're far more likely to really dig in and help and work with you, and vice versa. Yeah. Right. And so I think that's why that's really important. Whereas if you don't really know the person, you're like, we'll send an email to promote this activation. Like, we might do a workshop. I'll send one email, see how it goes, but like, if you really know this person, I know Charlie, I want him to succeed. I want to succeed. You're going to go to the final mile sort of thing. That's a big one for sure. That maybe we overlooked early on.
The other thing is, now let's say you form that partnership and things are working out well. More partnerships then begin to fail, again, much like a relationship. Like, if marriages break down because of a lack of communication, that's really number one. Lack of truly honest, transparent type of communication.
Yeah, I think just to get back to an earlier point that you made, Charlie, about kind of building a rapport, I think all of us might overlook the stuff that we already have to leverage in building these relationships. But I would challenge everyone to think, like, what can I do to build the trust and rapport. So you mentioned inviting people onto a podcast. That's a great way to have this kind of like one-on-one conversation to build some trust and rapport. And like, I know who Charlie is. We use your book. We send a copy to folks. Someone listening to this and be like, I know what they're doing to me now, right? Because we're giving away the playbook. But I think everyone has something like that in their business. But if you don't have a book, that's fine. Doesn't have to be that. It could be maybe you have a previous, I don't know, piece of content or something that you can send your person. You can write something in the mail, right? There's all sorts of things. I would just challenge you to think like, how can I be really intentional and thoughtful around this and leverage what I have in my business? That's a great way to do it. So I wanted to make a point about that, because I think oftentimes people are like, well, I don't have a book. It's like, that's okay. There's plenty of other things that we can find to leverage that you can use to start to build this trust and rapport instead of just hitting them with the sales pitch.
And the other part of a good partnership is that, both partners are trying to find ways to add value to one another's businesses and life and whatnot. We'll see opportunities in the other partner's business, and we'll share some advice and guidance, and they'll get an impact, and they'll be like, hey, here's how predictable profits has really helped me. On the flip side of the coin, those partners will share stuff with us. Like, another great example, we just had a conversation with Be Creatives, and Be Creatives, we're going to be doing a partnership with them. And one of the reasons why it just made the natural synergy is we've been using Be Creatives for years.
I was going to use them as an example. That's a great one. Or even like, say, accounting. If you do accounting, like, let them see your processes. Let them see how you operate.
Yeah.
Give them a taste of it so they know that you're legit. And it's like, oh, wow, this firm is different. But sorry, go ahead. Be Creatives is a great example because, we've been a user for years,
right? Or even like, What Converts, right? Because with What Converts, like, our clients are using What Converts already, right? And they're getting great results with What Converts. And so it's like, all of that sort of just makes sense. And I can keep going, over and over with the different communities or the different products or whatnot. But it's like, we either have personal experience with the product, personal experience with the service. They have made an impact in our lives, our business lives, or the communities that we're actively engaged with. And it's like, this isn't something that just is like big surprise. Like, hey, we're partnering with Acme Corp. Never heard of them, never worked with them, but they sound good, right? It's like, no, it's like,
dude, Charlie, you just mentioned, like, if you take one thing away from this, I can't believe I didn't think of this. That was such a good one to bring up, Be Creatives, but also What Converts. If you're like, how do I find partners? Go look at your clients. Who are they already working with in a different way?
That's a good,
right? Yeah. Like, if your ideal client, like if you work with, say, accountants, and all of your accountants use your service and some other service, and you guys are complementary. Hey, my client, Charlie Gaudet, says he loves your service. Thought it would make sense for us to have a conversation to see if there's a way for us to work together.
Yeah.
Instantly, you're like, my client is your client. Like, we have that rapport. We've done that multiple times. Like, the people you just mentioned, right? So, man, we saved the best for last. But I think if you're thinking, how do I just get started? Think about your customers or your clients that you have right now, and who are they working with, and see if you can strike up a partnership with them.
Yeah, right, exactly. And like you said, who are you working with too? Like, go through your credit card expense list. Like, who are the companies that you've been like spending money with on a regular basis? Go through your, and then create that list, and then use that as a starting point. Look, I know we're pushing up against the clock, and chances are you've got another call at the top of the hour here. So, Zach, this is the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. When it comes to partnerships, what would you say is your best tip for our listeners who want to take their business beyond 7 figures?
Yeah, probably that last one I just said, because I think a lot of people, as we know, Charlie, can kind of drag their business to the 7-figure mark or just thereabouts, maybe underneath it. But partners have a partner program that's like, standardized, has a real kind of process and cadence to it that has the ability to tip the marker or the scale and take you to a whole nother level. And if you're just starting out, you don't have this partnership, but you're at that, like, just about seven figures, or you want to go to the next level, even beyond that, really start looking at how do I build this partner program, and just start with who do I work with or who do my clients work with, right? And just kind of hone in on there. And that will be a good way to start to build momentum. So I think that's really, like, if you haven't heard Charlie and I talk ever before, you should just know that we talk a lot about momentum, right? And that is one of the things that you're just trying to generate here is momentum. And I think that's probably the best way to do so in a short amount of time.
Now, we are talking about partnerships here, and I'm sure there are going to be plenty of our listeners here that could be potential partners for Predictable Profits. What I will say is, don't waste your time and send us messages to say, hey, you want to promote for me, and expect some type of affiliate, just, transactional type of relationship, because that's just, then you miss the message of this entire podcast, right? However, if you are fiercely committed to a triple win type of relationship, if you're fiercely committed to delivering a positive outcome for your clients, and you work with 7, 8-figure companies, and literally, like, when I say you are fiercely committed to delivering an outcome like that, you get paid in direct proportion to the impact that you provide others. And if impact is part of your MO, then I would encourage you to have a conversation with Zach. And so, Zach, now I don't know if you want to give your email address out here, because you could get flooded with email inquiries, but
my inbox is already pretty bad as it is, so it's fine.
What is the best way for somebody to get in contact with you and just to explore whether or not it makes sense?
Yeah, actually, I would say go check out our website. We have a partner page there under resources, but also get a sense for our community and the programs that we have, what we do, and see if you think there's some synergy there. And if you do, then I think there's a contact form for partners that get us in touch. But I would say just kind of what I said before, explore what we do, see if it makes sense, get into our community, see those that are involved, and go from there.
And I would say connect with Zach on LinkedIn. So that would be Zach Burkes, Z-A-C-H. So not a K, correct. Z-A-C-H, Z-A-C-H Burkes, B-U-R-K-E-S, over on LinkedIn. If you tell Zach that you listen to this podcast and you send him a connection request, he'll accept your invite. Similarly, if you want to,
and I'll send you a copy of Charlie's book.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And if you want to connect with me as well, Charles Gaudet on LinkedIn, but you got to, if you want to be accepted, you got to make sure you tell me that you're a listener in this podcast, and I'll go ahead and I'll accept you. That'd be the best way to start a conversation, get to know one another, start the dance, and see where it ends up. But hey, that wraps up today's episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. Partnerships is a significant advantage moving into the year 2030. It's going to be one of your protective layers against the disruption that AI is going to have within the buyer's journey. I'd encourage you to maybe listen to this again twice, this episode. And if you're curious about different ways in which you can build the relationship strategy, build the partnership strategy within your own business, you can also, jump on the Predictable Profits website. That's predictableprofits.com. Join our community, interact with the members of the community there. That community is free. So you can jump into that community and start asking some questions. We'll give you some additional tips and strategies for maximizing that partnership strategy. So you can find that on predictableprofits.com. In the navigation, you'll find community. Jump in there. And of course, we tend to give preference to our listeners here on the podcast. So just make note that you've been a listener here on the podcast, and that'd be great. All right. So again, this wraps up today's episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. This is Charles Gaudet with my good friend and co-founder, Zach Burkes. I will see you in another episode.